welcome back. So, have you ever considered what flower medicine is, or also known as flower essence therapy? Well, today that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. So, we're going to begin with a little bit of the divine feminine modality, precisely, which is what this falls under. With me today is Jana Carrey. She is a divine feminine mentor, master intuitive healer, and flower medicine woman. Founder of Jana Carrey Healing, her virtual therapeutic practice and sacred community, which is where she interweaves a number of ancient, sacred feminine healing modalities to guide you back to the wholeness and empower you to live as your life. Jana is also an intuitive channel and spiritual teacher, where she translates higher consciousness and multidimensional wisdom into practical, grounded guidance that supports your modern life. Definitely, this is my kind of girl. Hi, Jana.
Hey, Angie, thank you so much for having me on the show today.
No, thank you for joining me. I mean, like I said, you're my kind of girl, from the divine feminine to the intuitive to I know you're also clairvoyant, like the whole spectrum.
All the Claire's, yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to be able to connect in the way that we're connecting and just share in conversations. And I love what we're going to talk about today, the flower essence and the flower medicine. But just kind of give us a small background into how did you even come across this?
Well, I know that we both share a connection because we've talked previously, we've been in connection and one of my main spiritual guides and guardians is the divine feminine ascended master known as Mary Magdalene. And she was the first ascended master to show up on my path as a spirit guide. There had been other guides that had come before, but she was like one when it was like, all right, game on. It's time for you to remember your ancient priestess roots and really start to remember that you agreed to come back to earth on behalf of the goddess and return to the divine feminine. And that when she showed up when I was doing a shamanic journey, and it was through mentoring with her multidimensionally, right? So I was like mentoring her, and that could be a whole nother thing.
Right.
But she guided me to flower essence therapy, which I'm also calling flower medicine, right? But flower essence therapy is a modality which I had really never heard of. I mean, I had used like Bach's rescue remedies. Some people know like Bach essences or Bach remedies from like going to the health food store. But she had told me that I was going to be helping women really learn to heal their womb and become like sovereign creators and creatrixes through the power of the womb healing, helping to support women who've gone through sexual trauma and abuse, and also I needed help clearing some sexual trauma I'd gone through. I had repressed that I had been date raped in college, and then it came back and in my early 30s when I was starting to go through like big healing. Okay. Right. And a big part of stepping into your calling is doing your own healing work, right? As I like to say, in order to live as your light, you have to love up the dark. And that's such a big part of the path of divine feminine embodiment. Is it's not just about the light, like, oh, rainbows and unicorns. It's about loving the body and coming back fully into the body and experiencing like living as a soul in a body, which means healing all the repressed memories and traumas that are in the body cellularly, which can also include genetically, because it gets stored in the cells and the DNA, all the traumas that your ancestors held. So some women haven't even experienced, thank goddess, any trauma in their womb this lifetime, but maybe their mom had birth trauma. It's guaranteed that in every single lineage of every single woman walking the planet right now, that there's been a woman in the lineage, probably many women, who faced some kind of trauma in the womb. And that's not to be like, oh no, things are more heavy than they need to be, but it's just addressing the truth with sober eyes,
right.
Open heart, so that we can actually shift this. And in order for women to really step into their roles as creatives for birthing this new earth, right, for making this world a better place, part of it is clearing away the pain, the old programming, the suffering, the repression out of the womb, the trauma. I mean, obviously the full body, but the trauma is one of the key divine feminine centers for where we really start to embody our power as women and as men too, because men have the spiritual technology of the second chakra. They just don't have the biological womb, which
Right.
makes the journey a little different.
Right.
So all of that aside, I was guided to flower. I was like, okay, Mary Magdalene, you have this mission for me. Great. But like, I need the tools. I need more tools to do this. At the time, I had just dropped out of my doctorate program in clinical psychology because I knew that I didn't need it. I already had, 2 masters, like published on grad research. I didn't need any more fancy titles. I needed to just show up and trust that I was enough, and that I had all these powerful gifts plus years of training. And it was time to just get out there and do the work. But I still felt like I needed one more tool. I was already channeling and doing energy healing, and flower essences, the plant medicine, this very, very gentle form of plant medicine, was that last sort of cornerstone I needed before I could really step out and like put my shingle out as like, this is Jana Carrey healing. I'm here to serve you.
Uh-huh.
So it was through the support of Mary Magdalene, connecting with my higher self, and all the synchronicities, because when you're being led by spirit and your higher self and your guides, that there's always synchronicities and support.
Right.
I was led to this modality and to work with some, other flower essence therapists, and then I was guided where to train. And then as I was working with the modality of flower essence therapy to heal myself, it literally, I feel like, saved my life, not only with the womb healing, but as an empath, as a highly sensitive, highly psychic empath, right? Where it's just like all the world's pain, I feel it like mine, like I have no boundaries. Where do I end? Where do you begin? Like, let me just be an emotional sponge and take it all on. And that's no way to live.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare. And the plants gave almost, like they gave me I'm getting a little emotional. I feel like the plants gave me my life back. Like they taught me better than any human could, working with them from the inside out, how to have boundaries. And for someone who's maybe on a little bit more on the narcissistic side of the spectrum, or who's not an empath or highly sensitive, they're like, what? Like,
right.
Why does, of course you have boundaries. Of course, where you at. For those people who are watching this or can relate, that are empaths or star seeds or highly sensitive beings, it's a whole different reality to feel that deeply. And we're designed to be that way. But having healthy boundaries and a healthy ego is key. It's a very different spiritual path for people that are old souls, star seeds, empaths, that are coming here to really change the world from the inside out energetically. And so the plants helped me. Like one of the first things they taught me was boundaries. Certain plants like yarrow, and anything with thorns like roses or creosote, even poison oak. I got really bad systemic poison oak when I was starting to train with the flowers. And I would hear, because at this point I was already clairaudient, all my psychic gifts were back online, and pull the spirit, because every plant has a spirit, just like every human has a spirit, every animal has a spirit. The plant's poison oak literally told me, I'm in your bloodstream now, and I am healing you from the inside out, and I'm teaching you about the power of boundaries.
Wow.
Because poison oak, poison ivy, that is a plant that will tell you in a very painfully uncomfortable way when you have crossed into its boundaries, and it's like, so, and then it just, the part of the path became very shamanic. Wherever I'd go, wherever I'd live, I'd go to every Airbnb I'd stay at, every, like when I've moved a lot, every like home or flat or apartment I've lived in, there was a plant that was there to give me medicine shamanically, to really teach me about its medicine on such a deep level. So I could really embody the wisdom of the plants in order to serve those who I'm meant to serve, like really knowing profound effects of how plant medicine, in this very gentle form, right? It's not like, and I may be making it seem like it's super intense. people who use flower essence therapy aren't going to have this intense, like shamanic. I mean, they might, but not everyone's going to need to have this crazy shamanic
Right.
experience I had, because that was my part. Just that was my path in order to really embody being a plant medicine woman, a flower medicine woman, and to serve people from such a place of deep knowing and integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the long short, right? The short story of how I was led to flower essence therapy, because it changed my life. And I knew that it was so much more powerful than other modalities I'd tried, that I knew this was something I needed to train in, and order to bring to others.
I think that's the beautiful thing when you're guided and you follow that guidance and you have the kind of experience that you had, just like you said, not everybody's going to have that experience, but you did because your path was taking you there. So that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because let me ask you, what is the difference between this kind of plant medicine and the Bach? I don't know how to pronounce that.
Oh, like the Bach flower
The
remedies?
Bach flowers, yeah. What is I've heard of the Bach flower remedies. So what is the difference in a way?
It's a great question. So I want to backtrack first by saying that flower essences aren't um, essential oils. So
Right.
that people know, because sometimes people get confused. Essential
Right.
oils are like aromatherapy, you put them on the skin. It takes a lot of, like, it takes fields and fields and fields to make like one essential oil. Flower essences work like according to the principles of homeopathy, where like less is more. You only need one flower
Okay.
to make many batches of essences. And Bach flower remedies are a form of flower essences. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
the same thing.
Okay.
It's just that Dr. Edward Bach, back in the 1800s, he lived in England, was one of the more like modern, I know we don't think of the 1800s as modern, but more, or maybe it was late 1800s, early 1900s. Um, but bringing it back as a modality, because it's something that flower essence therapy and alchemy flower medicine is a modality that has been practiced in lots of ancient civilizations, from Lemuria to Egypt to Atlantis to even a number of like indigenous traditions, right? Like there's not a single indigenous tradition in the world like that doesn't use plant medicine in some form, because we were meant to evolve along with the plants. But Dr. Bach rediscovered flower essences by like, the dew, the morning dew on plants and flowers. And as a doctor, right, like a scientist, a clinician, he got curious about like, well, what is this? And he researched it and realized that it had profound energetic effects. And from that, like, helped rediscover and pioneer flower essence therapy. Now, he wasn't the only one, right? I'm sure there was other people doing it, and it's like, right, it's like he's the one that gets a lot of credit, and right, it's like the white male, but we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. Because he is like really, like I really do want to honor his wisdom and not denigrate it and like
Right.
throw all that in the trash. But he just helped popularize it so many people know about Bach, which in and of itself is a blessing to put it back on people's radars, right? Um, but I just want to preface that there's been so many other traditions. It's not like he invented it, right? Like he just helped rediscover and popularize it.
It's funny because when you were talking about that, I don't know, sorry if you noticed or not, but I went like, oh, like I felt something. And for me, when I feel it in my heart, it's like a truth for me.
Yeah.
I've seen myself in Egypt in a past life. I completely just saw myself holding a blue flower.
Amazing.
Don't know what flower it is, but I know it was in Egypt. But I saw myself holding a blue flower, like I was going to do
Full
something
on
with the blue
truth
flower.
chills. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, he did not completely invent it, because I literally just got proof of my own past life that I saw myself doing that. So that was weird, but okay.
Whoa, I felt it. I saw when you felt that when I said we used to do it in ancient civilizations. I was aware. I was like, oh, something. What was that? Yeah. And
That's what it was.
we are we are in the Lionsgate portal right now, right? It opened on Thursday in the new moon in Leo, the Lionsgate portal in 2022. And like when I showed up, I was like, so that energy, right? Because I'm always reading energy. I don't turn the witchy powers off. Like the first energy that presented to me, I was like, hello, Egypt. Hello, Angela, like the Egypt princess, like Egypt priestess. So like your Egyptian energy, because my Egyptian energy is so powerful and forefront, is like right, and so I really felt that. And the flower that I'm hearing that you were holding is blue lotus. What you were holding is a blue lotus flower, and you can see if that resonates for you. But I heard
I'll
very
look for it.
clearly as you were, yeah. And blue lotus is a beautiful, it helps with dreaming, and that might mean that that's a formula for you to work with. It helps with dreaming. It helps with opening like the upper chakras. Lotus is very spiritual. uh they really help with like the higher like chakras. And each flower family has its own unique medicine, just like
Okay.
so like for example, roses. And there's it's like when you get into this field, you realize that how abundant Mother Nature is. Like there
Yeah.
are thousands of different varieties of roses, and each one has its unique medicine and gift. But in general, like roses support the heart, lilies support betrayal and trauma in the womb. Uh, Sunflowers support the solar plexus chakra and helping people to with issues around abundance and like willpower and strength. um, Pansies help with viruses. And so these families, right? Trees really help with grounding. There's certain poisonous plants that would be poisonous to eat can be made safely into essences, and they tend to be much more shamanic in nature and help people work with their shadow side and their hidden material, like belladonna or datura. So
Mm-hmm.
angel trumpet. So yeah, so each flat like family kind of has its like irises support creativity, kind of has its like zone of genius, if
Right.
you will.
Let me ask you something. So, okay, I believe everything has consciousness.
Yeah.
Each of these flowers and each of these plants has a different kind of consciousness. Now that you're talking about the different families within themselves, have you experienced like the actual consciousness of that group of flowers wanting to help humanity more in one way than another? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, that's such a great question.
It just channeled through. Don't ask me why I said that. That's why I'm like, does that make sense? When I say that, it's because I don't know what I'm spitting out. It's like,
So
okay.
the flowers, I feel like the flowers, more and more I'm being guided to talk more about the flowers, because recently this year the flowers were like, you're our spokesperson, we've appointed you. I'm not the only one, right? It's not like, but and so they probably came through and were like, ask her this question, like bing bing bing.
No, and the other day I was talking to somebody else. I don't remember if it was before or after I spoke with you that other time. I spoke to somebody else and he had a plant of plants in the back. It
Yeah.
was you, right? And I had the plant started talking and I was like, okay. So every time I talk to him, I'm like, are you taking care of the plant? What's going on with the plant? Because it's like I became connected with the plant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know why I just asked you that, but
No, I do. It's a great question. I don't think that there's one. I think they all want to help us evolve, but in different ways. Just like, because some plants are fierce, and they're going to be fierce teachers, and they aren't like they've been used and abused. Like for example, sometimes when I have tapped into the spirit of the plant of cannabis, and I don't use
okay.
cannabis not, at this point in my journey, like recreationally as a kid, like not a kid, but much younger. But I don't, just because it doesn't resonate for me as a plant medicine that I need. And it's become so overpopularized and commercialized right now. And sometimes I've tapped into the plant of cannabis, and she is pissed, like the collective, right? Like that divine feminine rage of like, I'm being commercialized. I am not being like, some people are like, right. There's some brilliant companies out there that are making like,
Great things.
really beautiful formulas, respecting the plant of cannabis. It's like having a relationship, right? Like nobody wants to be used and abused. Everybody wants to be respected and honored. And the system of like, right, I'm not going to go into a whole diatribe of how capitalism and the patriarchy uses and abuses things, but it does, right? And some plants are angry because people abuse cannabis, and that's not, there's some people who are going to maybe watch, I don't know, watch this. It's not it's not going to make me win a popularity contest in certain circles by being that honest, but I like, you know what, I'm here to be honest and speak on behalf of the plants, and it's the truth. And some plants, right, it's the same with like ayahuasca. It's like, if you're doing it in a sacred way with a shaman that's trained in it for the right reasons, and it's a beautiful plant that can help clear like, PTSD and depression and all sorts of things, but it can get overused and abused, and then the relationship gets weird, and the plant's like, can, like it, and it can, I've literally seen, if people abuse plant medicine, it can muck up their field. Too much can like create holes in their aura, and so it's like with everything, it's about like respect and honor. And that's part of what I love about flower essences, is they can't be, you can't, they're non-habit forming. They're not addictive. You can't become addicted to them like you could.
I know. I don't want it anymore. No, I'm kidding. You just said something, respect and honored. Divine feminine.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is back. I mean, okay, plants, our earth, our mother nature, our divine feminine. I mean, it's the same thing. And I think that's why it's making a comeback. And that's why, like you said, they chose you to be a spokesperson for them, because I think it's another way of the divine feminine. I think that's what's answering my question, by the way.
Oh, good.
I think it's so much that there's a particular plant that's wanting to help. I think it's that it's the essence of the divine feminine that is wanting to step up through her plants to help the collective with everything that's going on now.
Yes. It's not like grandmother ayahuasca, because I really see her as like, I feel her as like a grandmother energy. It's not like it's only she's here to help save humanity, right? That's like thinking that Nike is the only brand for shoes. Do you know what I mean? Just because something is really popular in popular culture, and I get it, people are busy, not everybody has the interest to dive deep, but literally, or thinking that just because someone has a gajillion Instagram followers that they're the only resource on something. We're literally surrounded by plants everywhere, and every single one of them has something to give us. Even what we consider weeds, like dandelions, have profound medicine. So I love it because it's like, it's also, it's available everywhere. It really can help us start to shift our abundance consciousness, because it's everywhere. It's about learning to access it.
Okay, this one wants to show up. I'm like, what the hell?
Is that a money plant?
Uh-huh.
She's beautiful.
The beautiful thing about this plant, actually, so my sister bought two of them, one for her, one for me. She brought one in and she put it on her desk, and she's like, I'm just putting this one here, but the other one, when I brought it and took it home, and the leaves like broke and this and that. And I was like, it doesn't matter, just bring it. Like, I'll take that one, it doesn't matter. That's this one.
She looks happy now.
I cut the little things that were off, this and that, and I've watered it, and it's always here on my desk. And she just bloomed. But when I'm telling you, I'm not even exaggerating, almost overnight. Like within 2 days, she went from having two little leaves to like that. I myself was looking at it like, wow, I didn't think that was possible, like to bloom so much so fast. But right, she just wanted to show up. Sorry.
It's totally, I'm listening, and I'm like, right, like I'm really feeling that, and I feel like there's always multiple levels, like, right, like we're having this conversation, and my prayer and intention is it's going to support everyone who needs to receive this, but by you hosting this show, right, by us doing anything, you're the first and we're the first in line to receive the medicine. So it's like in this way, I feel like even you and I being guided to connect together, it's helping you
Yeah.
strengthen your connection to the plants and the flowers and the divine, this divine feminine modality for you, right? Like, because you matter just as much as every other listener who's going to watch or listen to this too. And so that you're also receiving that, right? Like having this memory of being in Egypt, working with the flowers
Well, that's
as
what I was gonna, I'm sorry, that's what I was gonna show you when you picked up on my Egypt energy. It's no coincidence that this is exactly what I was working on last night. My Ankh.
oh, that's the Alana Fairchild's
Uh-huh.
deck. Yeah. I almost wore an Ankh today. I chose different. Actually, I chose I was gonna wear. I have an Ankh necklace, but I chose instead to work with wear my flower of life because we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
flowers. So, and I actually got this necklace when I graduated from and became certified through my flower essence program from my teacher. So it
Nice.
connects me to that lineage. So it
Right.
felt appropriate to wear it today. But the Ankh is such a powerful symbol for helping us to anchor our light. And so I'm feeling it, right? Like your work, the Egyptian, right? You've got your like leopard, the
Yep.
gold, like, yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of going back and forth, but it's the divine feminine that we're anchoring in regardless. And though we're talking about plants, but then I want to ask you, how do you work with a person with the plants? How do you know what they need? Do you mix them? Do they already come prepared? How does that even work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just to preface this, even though a big part of returning to earth is about the return, like earth medicine's about the return of the divine feminine in equal balance with the true divine masculine. So I don't want, if there's like male viewers or people that don't identify with either gender, I don't want them to feel alienated from this conversation.
Right.
Like they're not, that like flower essences aren't for them, right?
Mhm.
But what we're talking about is the true divine feminine in equal balance with the true sacred masculine. Like a lot of what we see out there is masculinity,
Mhm.
toxic masculinity that's dying away, or it's limited masculinity. It's not the full expression of the divine masculine, which is like kaleidoscopic. And there are plants who have more of a feminine consciousness, and there are plants that have more of a masculine consciousness, and there are plants that like identify, like have like an androgynous, like two spirits. So it's interesting that plants, when I work with their spirits, do have genders just like us, and also or show up as a collective or show up as like non-gender, just kind of like humans. So it felt important. I just was like, it felt important to preface that so no one felt alienate, right? Like I don't want to this day too, it's like we need to be sensitive for everyone. But uh even though it is so important to honor that return of the, like, that we're in this time of the return of the divine feminine, and as she returns, and she has been returning and rising, that's
Mhm.
actually what enables the true divine masculine to start to arrive on the planet as well, because they work together as polarities. But to then transition to your question about how I work with clients, like therapeutically, um, I make them combination formulas. So I will combine a number of different formulas, and sometimes I'll get like, it's like two, and sometimes it's like 11. It's
Okay.
generally like seven. I'll put like 7 to 8 in a formula. But I listen, and less doesn't necessarily mean it's less powerful. Sometimes it's like one plant is like one flower is just what wants to work with them. But I have sessions with them, like flower essence therapy sessions that take place virtually, because I work with clients all around the world, and then I'll mail them their essence after the session. I'll sit down and formulate it based on what comes up. Sorry, there's a little bug flying by. Based on what comes up in the session. So in the same way that like a doctor would write you a prescription, like I will create like a medicine formula as part of the therapy um, that they need, what's presenting, right? And it's like peeling away the layers. They might have throat chakra stuff to work on, like about speaking up, but I'm, and maybe they have like abundant stuff and fear that needs to be cleared in their solar plexus and supported. But if they don't have healthy boundaries and they aren't grounded in their body, then that other stuff's not even going to land. So
Right.
I'll be guided to first, like step by step, be like, okay, and meet people where they're at. And I'm like, even though you might want to be over here, we need to do this first and set the foundation. So right now we need to just have you have healthier boundaries and be grounded, and then, and clear some of the anxiety and trauma, and then we can address these other things. So there's an intelligence to it, a compassion, a kindness.
Okay.
Does that
It
make
sounds,
sense? Does that answer
no,
your question?
it does. And it's funny because I'm currently working with someone on a program that we're putting together. And this exact conversation happened. We're like, they can't get these things they want to manifest, and they're not getting these results until they have this done. So it's like taking a step back and seeing where the person is at. And actually, let's say they have this level, then they can work on that. But it's just like what you just said. If they want all these things or they have all these other traumas and issues, they still need to resolve this main one. And that's what you focus on.
And it's about slowing down, because a big part of the divine feminine is about slowing down, because it's great. It's great to want things and have desires, right? But sometimes the ego turns into the spiritual ego, and we use like manifestation as like one more, if we're not healed, as like one more thing, as like to beat ourselves up with. Like, oh, I haven't manifested $9 gajillion. What's wrong with me? What's breaking?
Right.
And it's right, like spirituality and certain things can be like buzzwords and and like pop words, and it gets twisted because of capitalism. It gets convoluted. And I'm not saying that when like the true medicine woman path, the true healing path is like slowing it down, and like the journey is the destination, the path is the destination, right? It's like your soul didn't just come here to manifest a bunch of shit like the universe's cosmic Amazon Prime. And that's actually part of what we're waking up out of, because that mentality of like, I just need more and more and more is actually what's created. It's part of the wound that we're healing. Of like, why do we need more? Like, it's destroying the planet, like, let's just be sober and real about that. Like, that's part of how we're maturing as humans. It's fine to have physical things, and for some people their path is letting themselves own that they want to have luxurious things and they're worth it. But it's about like, is the desire coming from a healthy place, from the heart, or is that desire coming from the wound where you think you need this thing outside of yourself to make you whole because you haven't addressed a core wound?
Right.
So it's a very different energetic.
Right.
And part of where we're at humanity, where I feel like the plants, the divine mother, the divine feminine, where we're going, right, is becoming these more mature divine human beings that see the bigger picture, right? Because just wanting things all the time, there might be an inner 5-year-old inside of us that's driving that.
Right.
And I say that with love and compassion, right? Like, these are things I've tended to and healed along the way as well. And yeah, that I just feel like that wanted to be spoken through me as well, right? And you see, as people awaken, right? Because you can be awake and still have a lot of things to heal. And as you go through different levels of awakening and healing, a big part of which is about embodiment, sometimes what you think you wanted shifts, right? What you think you wanted, you heal something, you're like, I don't need that anymore. I wanted that from a trauma that my family's been holding on to for thousands of years.
Right. And the thing is, not everybody's always going to know where that original trauma came from, but you can definitely feel the shift in you. And that's, I think all of us that are on this realm of helping other people shift and awaken and heal, I think that is something that we all see. Just focus on yourself. As you focus on yourself and you clean yourself and you break your trauma and you break your crap, you're going to heal your past and you're going to stop that from happening in the future. Just take care of you. I'm the first to admit, because I know a lot of different modalities, somebody about a month, 2 months ago said something that really struck with me. And I was like, God, I hadn't seen it that way, but it was like blunt to my face, like, got it. They were like, why do you keep searching? Like we were talking about family constellations, like in the typical sense of let's heal the family dynamics. And she looked at me and she was like, if you're going to keep healing, things are always going to show up. How many ancestors are literally in the lineage? Like, stop. You have to put a stop to it. And I looked at her and I was like, but if it still hasn't been broken in me, and she goes, why do you think it hasn't been broken? And it just clicked. I was like, oh God, you're right. Like, wow. And it's just that subtle shift, even when we talk about ego, the spiritual ego. It's like, I know how to do this, so I'm going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it to clean. To who says it wasn't clean with the first time? If the intention was that with the first time it was done and it was arranged and cleaned, why do we go back to healing it over and over and over again? It's just like saying the energetic codes for something and then repeating them every day. For one thing is discipline, one thing is not believing that this is going to come through, and it is because it is.
Yeah. I feel you on that. That's a big one, right? Of like when the, because it's like we continue to go through spiritual awakenings, even those of us who are leaders, showing up as leaders and healers and teachers. I mean, I just went through a massive death and rebirth last year, which has changed my work, my practice, like my offerings. I'm still in the process of shifting that. I'm about to launch a new website that came out of it, but I was showing up still from like a place of rescuing an old dynamic. And it's like, no, we're here to empower other people. Like my guide showed me where I was like showing up like people's mothers, you know, and not always, but they're like, they wouldn't go to their doctor or their tax attorney and get the kind of treatment from you. So it's like, you're not there to be their mom, and really realizing that. So it's similar to what you're saying. I'm like, I'm not here to do the work for them. I can, just like you're not here to do the work for all your unhealed ancestors. It's like you get to give it back. We now get to have fun, right? It's like, and enjoy the fruits of our labor, and that's okay, right? I have family members that are still in a place of on their own healing journey, but I've had to go through periods of just like, it's not my work to do. And those of us that are light workers can have like light worker overachiever syndrome, right? Of like,
I love that.
so much to do. And that's part of this massive shift that we've kind of been going through over the last couple of years, especially last year on the Lionsgate portal. Like it really ended this energetic that I saw on the planet of like the divine feminine just like working and working and having to work so hard to get traction. Like it's already happening. So much feminine energy is already being reestablished. A lot of the dark night of the soul we're seeing in humanity and all the crap we might see in the news is evidence of all the healing that's already happening. And those of us that have been on this path for so long are ready to just step into feeling good and letting this be fun and tapping back into joy and pleasure. It's literally like the guides are like, it's time for you to start being the new paradigm and leading by example and trusting that the time of just clearing endlessly, that's over.
Okay, I'm gonna go have a drink now.
It's like, right, that's part of this radical paradigm shift that we're going through, of like really stepping into fifth dimensional consciousness and beyond. And a part of that can also be called ascension. And a part of ascension is the return of the divine feminine with an equal balance to the divine masculine. But I'm feeling it, right? Like you can feel this tidal wave of people being like, I'm so tired of fighting, of being told as a woman that I need to fight for my reproductive rights of abortion. It's like, we don't need to fight the old system.
Right.
If you feel so called to, great, but that's dying away. So you have choice. Do you want to fight, or do you want to allow this radical fight to actually be feeling good? And that's definitely a massive shift I've gone through of like, and I think these times took us to that place of like, there's just too much happening all the time, all across the world. And if you tap into like what's wrong 24/7 through the news or social media, you'll be like caught in anxiety and depression constantly.
Right.
And especially if you care deeply, right? Like people like us and those who are listening. And it's like, I think it had to get so intense for me where I'm like, I just can't, I cannot. I'm not here to be all things to all people, right? I'm not here to put the needs of an entire planet before myself. And that's, I feel like, what the divine feminine has really like shifted and stood for. And and as women, we feel that we're just like, no, just
Right.
like, no, we're not putting the needs of an entire planet before our own enjoyment. Because there's sticky, subtle programming that you still see in a lot of women that I only can speak about so clearly because I had to go in and like and unplug it through myself, of this sense of I have to be a martyr. I always have to be doing this work, striving and achieving. And there's still like subtle layers of the patriarchy and the old toxic masculine of like, wait, when do we get to rest and like take care of ourselves?
Right. And I think one thing that's important to talk about, talking about the divine feminine, it's not that she's just soft and kind, and no, it's just seeing things from a different perspective. So let's just explain, the divine masculine is a very go-getter, strict paradigm. This is the structure, while the divine feminine is more flowing and love and creative, but it's still very powerful in a subtle way. And I think for me, I'll talk about me, I think that is a difference with me that I can see definitely. When I go into my doing, I know I become more into my masculine energy. And I don't notice how subtle my subtle energy of feminine goddess kind of goes away, because I am so focused on everything that I need to do, or I need to produce, or I have going on, or blah, blah, blah. But yet, if we look at it from the divine feminine energy, which is literally just spirit guiding us in a subtle way, things like today's call happen on the day that it should happen. There is no reason why the Lionsgate just happened before our call. 2 nights ago, I was meditating, or yesterday, I was meditating with the Ankh, and I show up with you today, and that's the first thing you see, because it's reminding me, hey, I'm still here, divine feminine goddess, I'm still here. I'm just waiting for you to come back. And that's what I need to be aware of. So part of the whole spiritual awakening for all of us, we're always going to be untangling a new level, but it's always remembering where we're at and keep going and not get stuck, because we also need the divine masculine energy. But for so long, let's talk about country or millennia or years or whatever it is, society has been stuck on just doing the things the masculine paradigm way. And I think this whole shift for people to understand is that things can be done different, but this needs to break down. Let it break down. Don't go into a fist about it.
Right. Right. Everything you just said was so beautiful, and I really felt the truth chills about you, like, right, like this, like the divine timing of this. Like there's so much magic to working with the divine feminine that's like unexplainable. It's like you have to trust and have faith. I cannot tell you how many things have unfolded and manifested in my life with so much ease, and I couldn't explain it. It wasn't all me. It was a team thing, and I had to be in such a surrendered place of like, and I have been through the surrender corridor. Like I have been broken down, by a lot of physical health, like, ongoing chronic illness, and broken down. And it's not something that you can like explain away in science, because it's mystery. There's always still an element to mystery. That's why the mystics like Rumi created these beautiful poems to it. That's like the true energy of the divine feminine. You can't ever fully pin it down and explain it away. We get this opportunity to just show up to life like when our inner innocence and like inner child is like, as it heals, with this like curiosity and wonderment about the magic of the way the universe is working. And that's part of what we're returning to too, of like life gets to be play and fun again. It was never meant to be so much effing hard work. That's part of the wounded masculine. You can see it in so many different paradigms, like artists, like I struggle for my art, or like, oh my God, I'm an addict because like my art, it tortures me. I'm tortured. And that's not to put that down, like, right. Like suffering. I have a lot of compassion for the way, but I'm remembering like a conversation Elizabeth Gilbert had with Russell Brand about that. She's like, oh my God, so much of like creativity, like, you know, she essentially, it was a divine feminine teaching she was having with him, and his light bulbs were going off. It was such a cool conversation. And he had like a crush on her. It was so fun to watch. But like, for her to be like, you know, like creating can be like fun. We get to invite the muse back, and it doesn't have to be torture. Like and a big part of it too is remembering how to receive, like remembering how to receive again. The divine feminine polarity, like the divine feminine has very fierce faces, and the divine masculine has very soft faces. It's nuanced, right? It's like it can be really easy to like put that in a box too. But in general, if you're thinking about it like magnets or polarities, it can be really helpful, particularly with people who are like, I don't like gender polarities. I'm like, fine, okay. Like, you know, they who don't like feminine masculine, they're like, ugh, why do we have to get hung up there? Think about it like yin or yang, or just like two poles on a magnet. That the feminine, like that magnet, that yin magnet, is like the same path as like the Tao Te Ching, that Lao Tzu, who was very masculine but in balance with the feminine, or even what like Yeshua, Jesus, preached. He had a lot of feminine to him, right? Like his archetypal journey, you know, and I don't speak, Yeshua is one of my guides. I say his name in Aramaic because that's how I feel connected to him as a priestess of Mary Magdalene, not through Christianity, which I have some complicated feelings about, which I think at its essence is about returning us to our heart, but it's done some damage. It's done some damage to people, and yeah, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But even Yeshua being like led to the cross and not fighting back, that was a divine feminine teaching. So many of his followers and patrons like were women,
right?
And it's this, and to the ego, the path of surrender is insane, right? Like it's insane. Like, why would you let yourself die? That's the ultimate surrender, right? But it's insane. It makes no sense, that level of unconditional love and trust. And I'm not saying we need to go to that level,
right?
But it's this sense of deep receiving and magnetism, and knowing that what we need, we just draw to us. It's like a deep inner knowing. And it's part of like coming into the body and being embodied too. That's a part of the divine feminine as well, where the more of us that remember to operate that way, and a lot of us are getting broken down by like being so exhausted from the fight. It literally has to be you see it getting broken down out of people because they just get so, and I went through this too. You get so, you get beaten out of you. Like, I just can't fight anymore. There's got to be another way. And that's when the divine feminine's like, are you ready for me?
Right.
Are you ready?
Right.
There's another way, you know? Like,
I was going to mention something. The surrender is like the death to the ego.
Yeah.
And even again, because I'm very honest and blunt on the show, I talk about myself. I'll talk about people, not specifically telling the client's name, but I had a client that is a spiritual person, is a spiritual leader, teaches others. And yet he confessed to me, he's like, I kind of don't want to go the next step because I'm scared I'm going to lose myself. And he caught himself saying it. And then he goes, wow, I'm caught in the loop. And the thing, and I told him, and I go,
courage.
Right. And I go, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Noticed it. That's all that you needed to do. Notice it. He was scared of taking the next step in his ascension and in the progress with the fear of having to surrender because I'm going to lose another part of my identity. I have let go of so much. What more do they want me to let go of? That was his response.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel so much compassion for that man in my heart because I can relate on such a visceral level to that. And I just went through it again, you know, because there was that part of my spiritual ego that was running, and it's so benevolent, right? But that was running like, oh, I'm God, I'm the light worker that's here to rescue the world. And that had to die away. And with that, a lot of clients left and I had to let go of some of them, you know, and I just, because I was like, we both need to evolve to our next level. And some of them are coming back now, but you know, it's not necessarily always easy, but but I feel like at our soul, like when we signed up for this lifetime, we knew it necessarily wasn't going to be easy, but to our soul, this is like game on. This is like the most fun cosmic rodeo in the universe. And that's the thing though. That's why we need the divine feminine, because ego death without to the toxic masculine is just death. That's it. That's final. There's no more. Right. The divine feminine is a birther. It's like, great, I know death. Death precedes rebirth. And the divine feminine's like, oh, I'll just rebirth things again. I mean, that's where the dark goddess shows up, like Kali Ma and Sekhmet. And they're like, I'm going to destroy. And Durga, right? These powerful goddesses that teach us about the power of destruction. It's not bad. It's just a necessary part of creation. That's why Mother Earth has wildfires and thunderstorms. She's not trying to like persecute humanity. She's clearing her energy, and she knows that and when we work to bring it back to flower medicine, as we work with flower essences, I've seen this in myself and in like hundreds of thousands of clients. It brings us back to trust with the feminine and trusting Mother Earth. Okay. So she goes through what she needs to go through as part of her ascension. Yes, climate change is real, but and yes, there's a lot of things humanity needs to do better, but part of it is also ascension. Mm-hmm. And this is right, like it's real. I'm not denying it. Climate change is real, but part of so many of Mother Earth's shifts is ascension, her going through her own healing crises in order to heal and ascend. And so I've seen this. It's like, whenever I view what's going on with climate change from the outside in, like from like what scientists, like only from like what scientists are, I'm like, oh my God, it's a disaster. But if I remember to tune in to my own higher self, my own embodied feminine presence, and I connect back to Mother Earth and the plants, I'm always like, wait, I'm safe, I'm loved. Mother Earth is like, just ask me what's going on. Like, I'm just healing. It's okay. Like, there's intelligence to this. If someone dies because of, a wildfire, then that was part of their soul contract and what they were meant to do. And I know that what I'm talking about is like a level of trust that some people aren't there yet. And they're like, oh my God, Jana, you're crazy watching this. But I just want to demonstrate that it's possible to get there and to live in that place of like not just constantly being in fear about everything that shows up. And it's like, that's part of healing the wound that a lot of people have of the divine feminine it's like of fearing the earth, fearing the witch, fearing their bodies, fearing their sexuality. Organized religion did create some of this damage, right? Like historically, all the witch burnings all throughout Europe, like it did a lot. There was this time of really disconnecting because the feminine was so feared, right? Like it was so co-opted and feared what was always meant to be so natural. And that's part of this big healing and shifting that's going on right now too. So that no matter if you're a man or a woman or you don't identify as either gender, that you can connect with your feminine and masculine essence and feel right? Like everyone needs to heal their feminine. Men need to heal their feminine as much as women do. Right. And it takes a lot of courage, especially, like shout out to all those men who see that and are doing that work, because some are already starting to do it. And I feel like more and more and more are going to step onto the path. But I just want to acknowledge, I feel called to say this because I feel like there's some man that's going to watch this. And like, I want to just acknowledge all the men that are doing the work of honoring the feminine and who may have been priestesses in past life who served the goddess and then in this lifetime came back as a man. And like to do that work and be a leader in your own way of healing your relationship to the feminine and masculine. Like, thank you. I feel the goddess like coming through me being like, thank you for doing that very, very courageous work. Like this client you're talking about, who I feel like even though he's having resistance, he's going there.
Oh no, he's there. He knows. Yeah. And I think, okay, we're gonna sum it back up because I know we're running out of time, but summing it kind of back up, I think many of us are here because we're part of the process for this shift. And yes, we were burned at the stake for being witches later, years ago and the whole thing. But the truth is that was the feminine way. And the feminine way is just learning how you could heal the body, how you could help with what's natural, meaning plants. Now, X amount of years later, conventional medicine has taken such power that people wanting to work with flower medicine might see it as well, that's a kid's play. Like, is that really going to help? And I think that's something that maybe we can go into another day, but if you can just kind of summarize, I know it doesn't work immediately, or does it? Because we're so used to taking a Tylenol versus do this natural medicine. It's so much better in so many different ways. But could you talk to people a little bit about that? Because I think conventional medicine has taken such a hold.
Yeah.
For them to think of this flower is going to help me, really? Like, do I eat the petal? Like, sarcastically. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm feeling called to share that one of my teachers and mentors in flower essence therapy, Brad Pitt, worked with her flower medicine, and that was part of what he credited to help healing his heart after his divorce from Angelina Jolie. So, I mean, he's a big name, right? And he's a man, and we all know that divorce, a lot of that stuff got messy with all the kids and everything. And I mean, I think it was even written about in Vogue or some very popular magazines. So, look, if Brad Pitt is working with
okay, say no more. No.
the gospel. No, I'm just teasing, right? I mean, I live in LA, like Hollywood's always the shadow there, but it's different. It's like its wheelhouse. Flower essences do support the physical body. Its wheelhouse is the emotional body. But it's definitely, I mean, I've had elevated liver enzymes, and the only thing that helped clear it was like working with flower essences to clear anger from the liver. So it's different, it's subtler, it's gentler. But as people awaken and ascend, when you drop density, you become more sensitive, and Western medicine stops working for a lot of people. I've seen that. And the thing is that paradigm of harder, better, faster, stronger. If something doesn't work, we chop it out, or we give you chemotherapy, or we like blast you with all these intense things. That is too much. It's like it costs all this money. Like, we like inundate you. And that old way of doing medicine, like allopathic medicine becoming popular, it's so political. Like, I studied bioethics in college. Like, it's so political. It's such a money game. There's so much like dirty energy.
Power and money, right?
Yeah. And nothing's all bad. It does a lot of good. People cure cancer with chemo, right? Like, I'm not saying like nothing's black or white in our reality. We can oversimplify anything, but as more and more people wake up, become more sensitive, they see things. And also, if you're someone who's suffering from chronic illness and you're like, what, like I was, Western medicine does not have the answers for you. It tells you you're like psychosomatic, like just go see a therapist for your chronic fatigue. And that's when I often find that people are ready for these other modalities when nothing else has worked.
Yes.
And flower essence therapy is not child's play. And I get that, right? It's just, it's more subtle and nuanced, but people become more subtle and nuanced as they awaken on their path. And as you drop density, then you start to realize that, oh my God, if I take a Tylenol now, it makes me nauseous, And so, and I also think plant medicine is gaining in popularity. And what I love about flower medicine is it's so gentle that like you can give it to your babies or your dogs or the elderly if you're chronic ill, and you can use it in your everyday life. It's not psychoactivating. You're not going to trip out from taking it. So you can weave it into your busy everyday life. You don't need to leave and go
right
on demonic retreat to like the jungles of Peru. I mean, if that's your path, great, but like you don't, it doesn't have to be that dramatic, you know, and that's part of the old way too of like, oh my God, the wound is so dramatic, the healing has to be so dramatic. And that's exhausting in and of itself.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's what I have to say about all of that. You know,
That's
and
it.
and it doesn't have to exist in a vacuum. The last thing I'm going to say is sometimes things have been manifesting, like things are been in our system for so long that the only way to address it is physical medicine, getting a supplement, going to a naturopath. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's like it takes a village to heal an empath or heal a person, right? It does. And so I see when I work with people like I'm part of a team. Sometimes working with me doing quantum energy healing to clear things or a flower essence formula is what they need. And sometimes I'll be honest with my clients where I'm like, it's too ingrained in your physical body. I also want you to go see a naturopath to give you supplements to help with clear the toxins in your liver or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's true. I mean, I'm the first one that'll say that 2 years ago, I had an intense pain. I didn't know what was going on. I never visit a doctor, like ever. I don't get sick. Technically, I don't get sick. I mean, I'll get a cold or something. And I told my sister to take me to the ER. They took out my gallbladder. Let's just, cut the story short. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, let me heal my way through it. No, I was in pain. If you need to take it out, take it. But the point is not letting ourselves get there. What was interesting was that when I was recovering, my gallbladder was talking to me. The energy and the consciousness of why it developed the problem it did spoke to me. I understood what it was trying to tell me. I understood what I had to let go of. And I have worked on that from here on out. But at that time and moment, if you need to see a doctor, go see a doctor. Like, we're not discouraging the fact that conventional medicine is horrible. Obviously, it's not. But these are the things that we can heal in so many different ways that can actually avoid us to go through that pain and suffering. Because that was pain. I mean, it was literal pain that took me to the ER.
Sorry you had to go through that. I've had to clear my gallbladder the natural way, right? Like I was led to, like, with essences and like a lot of clearing and supplements, but it's very common. A lot of women have to get their gallbladders out because it's connected to the liver. I mean, we could have a whole another episode on that, but but you're not wrong or bad because you had to do that. That was your path, right? That doesn't mean that my path doing it was like better than yours either. It's just options. As sovereign beings, we have choices, right? It's not like a woman who clears her womb using flower essences is better than a woman who had to get a hysterectomy. Right. We work with what we've got, but it's showing people that they have options. There's other tools. There's other ways. It's not just what has all the money and power. There are other ways of healing ourselves.
And what you said before, it's about having fun and remembering that not everything has to be hard. Yes, there was trauma in our past. Okay, let me take this flower medicine, heal myself. If there anything needs to be healed, I'll heal it calmly, having fun in my bottle of water as I go about my day to day. And I don't have to go through that pain and torture and this and that is the difference we're seeing. And it goes back to everything we're talking about. That is the masculine energy versus the feminine. Do you want to take care of yourself through the easy and fun way, or do you want to go through the hard way? But we're all going to go through it eventually, whatever it is. So,
right? It's like sometimes the universe is like, yeah, right. We're also remembering that it's like we really are in this time of remembering that life doesn't have to be so hard. It really doesn't. Not everything has to be a fight and a struggle. We don't have to constantly be fighting Democrat versus Republican, like vaccinated versus unvaccinated, like whatever versus whatever. It doesn't have to be this ongoing fight anymore.
Right. And not even with the things that are external, internal.
Yeah.
We don't have to keep fighting with ourselves. Do I need to do this? I need to do that. No, it's learning to actually enjoy life. It's learning to actually, one of the episodes for earlier this season, is it about enjoying life to the max? And it's about going out where you live and seeing the road and seeing the town and seeing the architecture and not just driving through it and passing it. It's taking the time to literally sit down, slow down, enjoy life, enjoy where you are, and take things as they are. Stop the internal fighting. If you find negative thoughts, calm down. You know, there are techniques. We talk about techniques, the whole thing. Flower medicine also helps do that. It's about actually coming into a more fun, relaxed, hey, maybe this could be enjoyable. Maybe life can be enjoyed, truthfully felt, and not just struggling to go pay for a vacation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We have choice, right? And the more free, well, the more embodied we become, the more like we free ourselves from these things. I mean, the truth is that we do have to go through a certain amount of the dark healing path in order to get to the light of life can be fun. And you can't necessarily bypass that. But for some people who, once you've been on the path for long enough, you also start to recognize that, hey, like I might be feeling darkness about something that, right? Like maybe, you know, like, okay, I'm feeling sacred rage because of the ridiculousness going on in the government with Roe v. Wade or whatever it is that's being triggered, but it doesn't have to take you down. It doesn't have to become your whole reality, you know, like there's beauty all around us 24/7. There's so much going right.
Right.
All around us.
Right.
Life is happening. Babies are being born. People are falling in love, you know, like amazing creative arts being created, new music's being put out, new discoveries are being made, new things are being invented, new telescopes are take the James Webb telescopes taking pictures in space of things we've never seen before. It's like even as we go through this death process, there's still so much like life. Like that's the thing about one of the like, you know, like the fundamental pieces of the Return of the Divine Feminine is that life's always creating itself again and again and again and again in infinite, abundant, myriad ways. So this isn't the end, it's just the beginning.
Yeah. Well, it is the end of our time though, but yes, I completely
it's just the beginning.
We are gonna have more conversations, so
yeah,
I'm
a 9-hour marathon. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, this is so
actually
fun.
That would be fun. I think we actually could pull that off.
Bathroom breaks, but yeah.
So, honey, your information is going to be down below, but where is the best place for people to find out more about you, more about the flower medicine? How do they connect with you?
The best way, I'd love for them, you know, they can come visit my website, janacarrey.com. I make it easy or Jana Carrey Healing, that everything's, you know, at Jana Carrey Healing on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm about to start a TikTok channel as well. You know, I post regularly so that if Instagram's your thing, you can connect with me there. If Facebook's your thing, come connect with me there. If you don't like social media, I definitely encourage you to come to the website where I give more information about flower medicine. And I am about to, depending on when you watch this in August, I'm about to launch a new website. But the best way is come on over to my website, sign up for my newsletter. That's my favorite way to get in touch with people. And there's things that I offer through my newsletter list that I don't share anywhere else, like specials. And it just enables me to feel like I have more intimate connection with people. Yeah, that's the best way to connect.
Okay, perfect. Well, honey, thank you so much for your time, for the laugh, for the information. My reconnection, because
this was so much fun. See, right? It gets to be play. Like this felt like play, right? It wasn't work, it was play, but so much beautiful stuff happened.
And the beautiful thing is precisely being open and sharing these conversations, because I think that's the number one thing for me. People need to see that these are just day-to-day conversations that can happen anywhere, anytime. So
thank you so much for facilitating this and hosting this and offering this. And it's such a beautiful service that you're offering. It's coming from your very, very generous, open heart. So thank you. And I'm happy to reconnect with you again. Yay. Egyptian starseed priestess sister.
Hey, let's do something. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Bye. Take so much care of yourselves. So much love.
Bye.